to give you a sense of the spirit of the program. The idea for a youth program connected to the Museum for Human Rights started right at the very beginning, when the idea of the museum even came forward between David Newman and Cam King. They were involved in getting the memorandum of understanding with the museum and Rotary, or at least the Rotary District 5550, which was subsequently signed. And then we could start designing a youth program. And similar to my volunteering to work on a youth program, or at the same time as me volunteering to work as a youth program, Erwin Kumka from West Winnipeg had also volunteered. And so I was asked if we wanted to work together. And we both agreed extremely quickly, because co-chairing, I think, is sort of the way of the future, because as long as you're co-chairing with someone you know and understand, but it's a way to get more stuff done, have different opinions, fine-tune programs and ideas. So we got things rolling, and then quickly got assistance from Estelle Lamoureux, an extremely experienced teacher, because neither Erwin or I had any teaching experience with students, certainly teaching experience within industry, but so we valued her contribution, and another teacher, Linda Johnstone. So between the four of us, we worked with the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to start designing a program, and met with them, I think, starting in 2014. Once the structure was sort of up and you're able to go in and have meetings and stuff. And the inaugural program was 2015, and we had 24 students, mostly from Manitoba, the Winnipeg area, because it was a pilot program, a 3-year pilot with the museum, and no charge at that point. And the students were unknown to them. They were the guinea pigs to figure out how to run this. And it would appear that we were right the first time, because that format that we designed, the 5 full days spread over 6 days, has pretty well stayed unchanged. The students have been very engaged and involved, and 3 days equivalent are spent at the museum, where they go through issues, broad issues, but they get into the sort of the nitty-gritty of it. And of course, it's Indigenous issues. So we talk about treaties, treaty rights, and then with the TRC coming in, that entered into it. And we use Indigenous mentors for this part of the program. Also covering world genocides with a particular focus on the Holocaust, because it's really an example of how mechanized genocide can be. And then we move on to covering general human rights in Canada, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, democracy. What is democracy? I think a lot of people don't understand what democracy really is. And so that's a real eye-opener. And then we break up the week on the Tuesday. We introduce them to the whole concept of immigration and refugees. A lot of the students don't know the difference. So we spend the whole day with IRCOM, the Immigrant Refugee Community Organization of Manitoba. They're sort of the major hub for all immigrant refugee activities in Winnipeg and Manitoba. And listening to firsthand to those presenters, and going through a bit of a workshop on what refugees and immigrants have to deal with, and then winding up the day with that barbecue at Central Park. All we do is set up. We don't advertise it. We just set it up, start cooking, and through that evening, by about 5:30, when the food is ready, and through to about 6:30 or 7, we'll serve over 500 people that live in the core area. And some students find it a little unsettling at first because it's just simply a part of life that they're not used to seeing up front. But at the end of the day, all of them are just going, wow, they're people just like us. They just have had different experiences and things haven't gone right for them. And so and happening on the Tuesday, it really gets their brains clicking in. And then the Wednesday at the Human Rights Museum with more programs. And then we decided we would break up the way their minds are going, and we do the Hermetic Code Tour at the Manitoba Legislature. And really it's a combination of history, architecture, mysticism, if you will. And we were concerned that the students would be interested or not interested. Every single group that has gone through that, they just come through that. It's the relief of now for something completely different. And I think it's very important to try to introduce something unrelated to the other real heavy topics that you're dealing with, to something that's new, but still has to do with humanity and politics and democracy and people. So it's always been a very successful time. And then we jump into, on the Thursday, the environment. And this is something we started before Rotary made the environment one of the key subject for Rotary work. And so this was, we were thrilled to see that Rotary took it on as a major factor. And they really just look at two things: the rights of the environment, focused on water primarily. And they spent an hour and a half working on that, and with a interchange with a water specialist at Fort White Alive. And then the other half is split into the bison safari. And again, the students become surprised because it's sort of interesting just to see the bison and be among them in a bus in a protected environment, but you can be right within 4 to 5 feet of living a bison with their young. But what they learn about is they learn about the history of the bison and humanity, the importance of bison to both the cultures of the indigenous tribes of the Northern Great Plains, as well as the ecology of the Northern Great Plains and how that synergy works. So again, they get invigorated. And we've been really fortunate since Janice Fillman became Lieutenant Governor. She's invited the groups for reception to Government House. And again, they see another part of government and how it works and understand. And it's their one excuse to get all dressed up. We tell all the students to make sure they bring their best and show their best, and they're just thrilled. And for, I would say, 99% of the students, they have never been into a Government House. And the Friday is focused on how do we make use of everything that they've learned. And we take them through sort of a project development phase, and each one focuses on what they feel is important to them and their community that they're going back to, and develop their action plan. And we also introduce all the Rotary programs: Interact, Rotaract, Rotary Youth Exchange, all these activities that happen within Rotary that can help them on their journey. Now, the one thing that the Human Rights Museum says about the RAHR students is that it is the only group of students that come through that are totally focused on the programs that they're doing. Most of the high school students that go through the programs there, it's a class, it's a group that is required to attend as one. And it's only a smaller percentage of the group that actually is paying attention, and the rest of the group is just, or their minds are wandering, or they're trying to sneak onto their cell phones and this kind of thing. And of course, the students have their cell phones with them, But what happens now is instead of going and seeing who's texting them, they're researching, who was this person? What more can I learn about this? So the cell phone becomes a tool. Also, the experience of being in residence at the University of Winnipeg is a huge bonding experience. So for the period of Sunday evening through Saturday morning, these students are together. We try to make sure they're not together between 10:30 p.m. and 7 a.m., but we have systems of making sure there's no togetherness after that. But it's just, as a Rotarian and as working on this, it just fills you with sort of wonder of where these students are going. And that's certainly why I do it, and you get addicted to it. But what I'm looking for now, and this is so everybody pay attention, I'm looking for some succession. And if this appeals to anybody, just let me know. And if we can find a replacement for this old guy, it would be preferable if someone had teaching experience. So if you know of a Rotarian, that would, just let me know. And we can see how we can have a succession to keep this program going. I should mention, core to this committee now, which is really just Erwin, myself, and Tamara Larson, who's the Director of Youth Programs for our zone. She is an amazing Rotarian out of Edmonton. And when she first heard of the program, she volunteered to help. And so I think it was 4 years ago now, she comes in and basically becomes the adult interface between the students and the program. And because she's a retired teacher, she understands the students. If you're not a teacher, which I never was, the students know that, and it's much harder for myself to engage with them. And it's there's an ageism thing that does exist. It's real. And by the end of the week, that's disappeared. But as an elderly person, an older adult, you have to be very careful on how you engage with the young people and have them approach you. Don't you approach them. Don't you try to force anything on them. So these are the kind of little tricks that we learn. But that's sort of an overview of the fun and games that we have with this program. Last year we canceled it completely, didn't know how to run it online. This year we ran it online. It gave us a little bit more scope. We had a student from Iqaluit, student from Athabasca, and then students from Dryden, Kenora, and Winnipeg. And online for this kind of program is not bad, but it's not great. Mm-hmm. Because two of the students were finding some of the topics getting a little too much for them, and they just click off, and then they come back later, and you can't really talk to them about it. So I'm not a true fan of Zoom in this particular context. But the advantage is, of course, you can reach anybody, anywhere, anytime, and so you can have input from new areas. Any questions?
Thanks, Rob.